Here's another example of how a little detail can make a big difference. This molding is about 3/4 of an inch wide and about 3/8 of an inch thick. But we can add it to this pilaster and really make a big difference. Now, because this molding is so small, it's really important to use a headless pinner because I don't want to split it. And also, on a project as nice as this mantle, we want to really minimize the nail holes that have to be filled. So let's take a look at how we do it. I've also got these 2 small return pieces. And boy, as you can see, it's really going to be important to have a small fastener so I don't split them. Now, one of the little tricks that I've learned is instead of trying to mark and measure things, I can just use something like this as a spacer to separate the molding that's already up here from the one that I want to put on. So I just stick this piece up, bring the other one underneath it, and what I usually do is just feel that to feel that it's centered. Takes a little bit of practice, but pretty soon you'll know exactly when you've got it where you want it. Now I'm going to pull that out of the way and probably going to put just a tiny bit of glue in the joint. Now this mantle is going to stain, so I'm going to be very, very careful what I do with the glue. I've got an outside corner there, and that's really where you see the beauty of how a molding looks. And that glue will start to set up right away. So I'm going to get in there, shoot that headless pin in. And the glue is going to be even more important on this side because I'll be able to put probably 1 fastener in, but I'm going to have trouble getting a lot of fasteners in. And that's another nice thing about these headless pinners is they're fairly small, so you can get into a tight spot with them. Now, I think you're going to agree with me that that looks even better than the pilaster we had before. This is part of the base detail that wraps around this pilaster. Now, I put some glue in that joint and shot some pins through the face of it because once I get it in there, it's going to be fairly hard to attach. I'll be able to get maybe just 1 pin through the side. And actually, a really great thing about a headless pinner is I can also angle through the top. It would be really hard to do that with even an 18 gauge brad nailer because you just can't shoot through the thin back edge of the wood without splitting it out. And boy, once I split that out, I'd really be in trouble. So in essence, I just toe nailed that piece in place where I wouldn't be able to nail it otherwise. Now I'm going to go ahead and come across the front and nail it off. I'm going to put some glue on this piece and then we'll be ready to start the decorative top pieces. Now that small of a piece, when you're shooting through the grain, sometimes they'll split on you back before you have a headless pinner. But now that I've got a headless pinner, I really don't have to worry about it splitting. A big nail shot crossways through that grain could easily split it, but the headless pin is so small that it rarely ever splits anything. And the reason I say rarely is because one time when I made that statement, the next shot did split a piece. Okay, now we've got the base part. I'm going to add the decorative top piece. I'll do the same thing. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on here, being really, really careful not to get out by the face. I'm going to line things up like so. Get my fingers back out of the way. One of the things that I really like about headless pins too is they'll hold the joint together, but they don't tend to pull it out of alignment. If I can get this surface lined up and put a headless pin in it, it's going to really hold it till that glue dries. Whereas if I was using a bigger fastener with a head, I might have to hold that a little bit closer, which is dangerous because if something goes wrong, that fastener might end up in my finger. Okay, now this is an even smaller piece I'm going to be putting the pins in. I have absolutely no fear that it's going to split that little bitty piece. And what a beautiful detail I get by creating those outside corners and wrapping moldings around this pilaster. A lot of times when you're building a project like this, you find some pieces that you really can't totally nail in place until after some of the other trades have done their work. For instance, right here, I don't know what length these two pieces need to be until the stone is put on the face of this fireplace. But I want to be able to have some material that's been pre-finished to match the rest of the fireplace. So what I'm going to do is just temporarily tack these two pieces in place. And it's a great use for a headless pinner because one headless pin will keep them in place so the painter can finish them. But then when I want to pull them off to cut them to the exact length, I won't be damaging anything with a pry bar pulling them off because one headless pin will let them come off fairly easily. And there's nothing more frustrating than getting to the end of the project and you think, I had all those pieces cut, what happened to them? I'm going to know exactly where they are when it's time to cut them to their final length. They'll be right there pre-finished.